Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I hope you're going well. I hope this live stream finds you happy, healthy, and we're ready for the Spanish Grand Prix. Nice to engage with you guys in the chat just before we kick off the show. So thanks for coming in early and, asking your questions. I've got, 5-10 minutes to answer your questions a little bit beforehand. So thank you. Yeah, if you do have a question like a super chat or, you've got a burning question that you want to ask me, the super chat would be the best way to get my attention. Otherwise, members of the channel will get priority. I'll just bring up, for example, Barbara Martinez says, Hola, hola a todos. Barbara, I hope you enjoyed Imola and thanks for sending through your photos. I enjoyed looking at them. So yeah, what I want to do in this live stream, guys, is just start with a few questions from Monaco because there's been a lot of talk about was it a good weekend? Was it a good race? The Ferrari strategy and so on. So just bear with me for 10 minutes before we crack on with the Spanish Grand Prix preview. Just want to answer a few of those questions because there's a lot of misinformation or rubbish floating around out there. I just want to set it straight. And that's one of the reasons why I made the channel, is to just cut through some of this stuff and just try to tell you guys like what the reality of the situation. Okay, so was it a good race? Now look, Monaco, it wasn't a good race, but I don't expect a good race. It's Monaco. It's always going to be a little bit of a slow burn or potentially no overtaking or potentially a procession, worst case. But I had no expectations for the Monaco Grand Prix. And if you had expectations for the Monaco Grand Prix, like you're sitting there thinking, this is going to be a mad race, I'm ready, there's going to be a lot of overtaking and a lot of strategy, I think that's maybe where you went wrong. Remember that happiness is going to be the difference between expectations and your reality. So it's like, if you have high expectations, you might be disappointed. If you sat down in Monaco and said, you know what, if we get a good race, so be it. And if we don't, it's all good. We had a mad qualifying session. And that's the thing about Monaco. It always delivers a sick qualifying session. Each and every single year, the qualifying, the Q3 lap, the driver that puts it on pole, it's a mad lap and a mad session. And that, in combination with the history of Monaco, what it means for Formula One, plus the event, like I can only imagine what it would be like to be there in person, plus that event and entertainment, I think, of course, it deserves to stay on the calendar. So that's why I think, yeah, you just want to sit down and not expect. I'm always like, if we get a good race, I'll take it. But otherwise, I'm happy. Should they keep the Monaco Grand Prix is the other big question floating around. Of course they should. It's got a deep history within Formula One. We can't lose our tradition. We can't lose our history. We can't lose our culture. We can't lose the memories. We can't lose what it means to put together a Q3 lap in the dying minutes and nail every single driving input across cambers, bumps, elevations, crests, dips, downhill braking, uphill braking. Like there's also, we're not going to be so obsessed with immediate satisfaction. There's also a relation to F1 that's just about the driving for once. And Monaco gives us that. Like I say, each year it just delivers a mad qualifying session. So we should keep it. It's like the Colosseum in Rome, for example. Do we say, we don't use this thing anymore, let's get rid of the Roman Colosseum because it's... No. In the words of Franco Colapinto, this you don't touch, non toccare, no tocar. Do not touch the Colosseum. Why? Because it's history, it's tradition, it's culture, it's respect. It has meaning, it has value, it's architecture. It's like Monaco is that. So it wasn't a great race, but I didn't expect one, and we should keep it because of all the aforementioned. I want to talk to you guys as well about the post that I put out yesterday or the day before. I'll bring it up on the screen in front of you. But essentially, I was just saying like, F1 there used to be something to be said for F1 being, the best of the best engineers and limiting mistakes and, if you do make a mistake, quickly resolving for that mistake and making sure it doesn't happen again, and continuous improvement and learning and teamwork. I don't know. I just felt like there was a higher standard of driving and engineering and teamwork and communication that has fallen away over the last couple of years. Maybe it was Drive to Survive. Maybe it was COVID. Maybe it was when the cost cap came in and the teams became super profitable now and you don't have to get results to make money. If the sponsorship's coming in and you've got a cost cap, you've got unlimited money on the income side and you have a limitation to your expenses, Maybe it's that. I'm not sure what it is, but I just feel like everyone's brains have switched off. So I'll read out the post. I'll bring it up on the screen in front of you. Bear with me. I'll just bring it up. Barbara, I'll bring your question down. And I'll read it out to you guys just so you can see it. Hopefully, if I just zoom in, can you guys see that? Okay, here we go. So this is the post. So I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but I wanted to read it out to you, at least in my own words. So my question was, why did the teams hire engineers for the race engineer role when it's got nothing to do with engineering? The race engineer role is a combination of empathy and communication. Empathy, understand what information your driver needs at that time. And communication, ability to deliver that information clearly and concisely, no more, no less. Now, a lot of people at that point are going to say, well, hang on, the race engineer does more than empathy and communication. He's responsible for the performance of the car. He's responsible for the safety of the car. He's responsible for the setup and to some extent the strategy. And that's where I say, no, stop. I want my race engineer to just be a race engineer. I want my race engineer to be a specialist and really hone in and nail these skills, including empathy and communication. I want my driver to protect me. I want my race engineer to protect me. I want my race engineer to tell me what I need to know, to inform me, to communicate with me, to look out for me and look after me. I want my race engineer to do all these things. Like I don't, with the setup and whatever and the strategy, get your strategy engineer, get your performance engineer, get those guys to take care of that. I want my race engineer to have empathy and communication. Surely it's an EQ role, not an IQ role. And I think that's where we go wrong. We hire for IQ. I say we, like F1 teams hire for IQ. And you're being assessed on your EQ. EQ being, I don't know what it stands for, but it's not IQ. It's your empathy and communication. It's your soft skills. Context is key, right? I'm an engineer and I've race engineered before, and I'm telling you, F1 is an over-engineered, mediocre sporting endeavor as at May 2025. I feel like engineering has taken over race operations to the detriment of performance because not everything is a calculation. Maybe there is a relation to F1 that is not a calculation. Rather, it's feel, instinct, experience, study, and craft. F1 is no longer the world's upper echelon sport. To the extent at which teams struggle to communicate correctly, execute clean strategies, and drivers routinely take incorrect racing lines, to name a few, you would be an abbot of unreason to consider F1 as a highly competent sporting endeavor at the racetrack. And I specify at the racetrack because I think the teams back at base, I think they do a pretty good job. The cars and machines, they are, and it's not really my field. I can't really comment on it, but you're talking the aero team, the electronics team, the vehicle dynamics team. The cars are amazing. The operations, I feel like, is where we drop the ball. Values like respect, accountability, excellence, performance, and perfection have sadly passed us by. And we're left with a social media generation of rookie drivers who know little about the art of driving, paired up with racing operations who know little about extracting performance from their drivers. I think that's the key part, guys. Rookies who know little about the arts of driving. Yeah, they can drive, they're coordinated, they can hold the wheel and pedals, but the art of driving in the details, right? Deep inside what it means to be a racing driver and put the car on the limit and manage the grip and play with the tools and optimize everything. I think that part is missing, where they just kind of jump in and drive, and the rest of it is just sponsors, meetings, media, training, gym. Take a leaf out of Nico Rosberg's book. Mentality, technical, mental, and tactical sides also need addressing. Where to from here? I can only add value on the driving side and help to clean up the level of the drivers so that we are looking at better quality driving and more often. You may have seen Charles's line into the Rascas, which I spotted in FP3 did not look right. So come qualifying, I wasn't surprised that he lost the pole due to a 1/10 of a second loss in the Rascas. For race engineers, strategists, etc., we just need better people to represent us so that the sport doesn't become a laugh. We are taken seriously, and anyone involved can hold their head up and say, I'm genuinely proud to work in F1 because it is a sport that continues to strive for excellence. Now, I wanted to read that out to you guys just so that you understand where I'm coming from, what my values are, how we can improve the sport and make it just a better, like it should the mistakes have to be limited. Continuous improvement has to be there as well. Now, I just want to quickly bring up what I spotted in FP3. And you guys know that I filmed the FP3 part of the video before qualifying. So FP3 finishes, I jump on, film everything, and then I watch quali, and then I jump on, film the quali, I stitch it all together, and then I push it back out. So what I've seen in FP3, I didn't know would cost Charles Leclerc pole, but it doesn't surprise me given what we've seen. Let's have a look at it now. And I wanted to show it to you guys. This was telling for me. I saw this in FP3. You can see the screenshots that I took. It's P3, 12 minutes to go on the top left with Leclerc over here. And on Verstappen's shot is 41 minutes to go. But their lines are what I'm looking at here. Now, if we start with Leclerc, I just feel like from this position, you can't carry enough speed on the entry into the Raskas. The exit, like for now, let's put that to one side. Actually, I think it costs you on the exit as well because you end up getting pinched, like stuck on this first part of the corner here with the right front. You can't continue to add and wind on steering lock. So if Charles continues at this rate, his right front's almost going to make contact with this wall, and you want to leave the space from which to absorb so that when you turn into the Raskas, the steering is doing a little bit of the braking as well, if that makes sense. So who was the driver whose technique I liked? The four-time champion Max Verstappen. Have a look at this. There's an extra meter that Max is to the left. If you use the left front as your reference across to the Pirelli sign, I'll just zoom out so you can see both. If you use the left front as your reference, you see Max is about a meter and a half to the left. And when you turn in from that position, yes, you can wind on the steering nicely and carry good apex speed through the Raskas. And then it's very easy to straighten the steering wheel and go for it. I fear for Leclerc how he's going to get in and out of this corner from this line. So I didn't like it and I called it out in FP3. Now that's one half of the story. The other half of the story is, where did Charles Leclerc lose pole and why? Well, you won't be surprised to know it was the Raskas. And that's where I'm like, come on guys, like I'm at home in front of my laptop here trying to see this stuff, and you guys with all the data, all the information at the track, like help nurture your drivers. So that's what was frustrating. I'm going to bring it up on the screen now to show you where he lost the pole. So we picked the two fastest laps. It was a 10-0 from Leclerc and a 9-9 from Norris. And the delta is what we're looking at here. So anytime the red is under the orange, that's Charles in front of Norris. So what that means is Charles was in front of Norris for most of this lap. It's only at the end where it went away and switched, the delta switched to Charles being behind. But you know where it switched? You betcha. It switched in the Raskas. The delta went from he was up 1.5 tenths on the entry to the Raskas. And he exits the final part of the lap 1 tenth down. He's lost 2 tenths in here, and it's on the way into the Raskas. The moment here, with Charles with disadvantage, 1.5 tenths, the delta goes up as the speed comes off into the Raskas, and then he loses a little bit more on the way out of the final corner anti-node as well. So I'm like I see this and I'm like, come on guys, what are you doing? You know, like that's when I was like, that in combination with Ricky, Hamilton, that's where I'm like, well, I had to put that post out. I wanted to talk just quickly about Hamilton as well. You may have seen him in the nightclubs afterwards, and I don't know what to make of it. There's definitely two sides to how I see this and how I interpret this. And a bit of context again, after the race, he was out at the nightclubs having a good time. Now, the first side is, well, he's 40. He's won everything there is to win in F1, including 7 championships and 90 races or whatever, 100 poles, whatever. Let him enjoy, let him live, let him enjoy being a Ferrari driver. That's one argument to which I respect, understand, and to some extent, I hold that argument as well. There's another argument that says, hang on, Lewis, you got work to do, mate. What are you doing partying? Like after the race, you want to sit down with Ricky across the table and say, hey, Ricky, this is what I need to know. When I say this, I need this. And what happened there with that lap time there? Why did I make that mistake? Was a break too late? Okay, cool. Like there's work to be done on lap time side and communication side. Am I being too hard? Are we being too hard if we say that that time should be spent working and improving? Or do you think that he's 40, he's won everything there is to win. Let him have a good time. I don't know, and I respect and I actually hold both. I hold both. Now, if it was a young driver like an Antonelli or something, an 18-year-old or Franco, I'd be like, what are you doing, mate? Get out of there. Like, get back to the, do you know what I mean? Like, but because it's Lewis and he's won everything, I'm kind of like, at one point you got to live your life as well. But I thought I'd call that out as we head into the driver's mentality section and who needs to do what. You're not going to win yourself an 8th title if that, like, could you imagine Schumacher doing that? Schumacher's up till 10 p.m. watching the onboards, you know, it's different. So let me know what you guys think. There's a bit of chat here about short corners. Divination Slipstream, that's probably because Peter's misidentifying tight line as a short corner. I have a video out on this if you're confused as to the difference, but sit tight because in this live stream, I'm going to bring up the whiteboard. There's some places in Spain where there's tight lines and short corners are acceptable. I'm going to show you the difference between the two in this live stream. All right, quick check of the weather, as we always do, just before we kick on with the full live stream proper. So this is Spanish preview now. What do we got? Friday 27, Saturday 26, Sunday 27 as well. It looks fairly dry. The temperature comes on in the morning and then it pretty much holds the whole way. So happy days, no rain, moderately warm conditions. And we've got the hardest compounds this weekend as well. So I'm going to get on to the implication of that. But we always just check the weather, see if there's any rain, see if you need to set the car up a certain way or what impact the cool temperatures or hot temperatures will have. So that's why we check the weather just to give the whole, everything we're about to say about lines, mentality. The weather is very important. Now the wind is also important, which we should be checking as well. The teams will be checking that. So driver's mentality. Look, it's a big weekend, this one. If your car is good in Spain and if you take 25 points in Spain, there is something to be said extrapolating forward to say, well, I've got a good car. I'm confident with my car. With this new technical directive that's coming in or come in, you know, moving forward, we're going to be fighting. It's like you put down a stamp for the championship to say, like, you know, we're here for this one and we're competing for it. So I think from the driver's mentality side, I mean, all the races are important, but I think just before the 2 weeks break here before Canada, mentally, this will be worth a little bit more. Now, Monaco was worth a bit more mentally in a different way. I think Lando winning that one going to give him confidence for the rest of the season. But I think if you win Spain, it's like it gives you authority for the rest of the season. That's how I feel about it because Spain's got, you know, a combination of corners. I'm just looking at the track map here. A lot of long corners, increasing radius and constant radius, a decent straight, a mix of high speed and slow speed. There's direction change as well. Front grip and traction are important. The one thing it doesn't have is like ability to ride curbs and chicanes and dips and cambers and crests and, you know, like Monaco, get the car to play and do all that sort of stuff with all of the undulations of the track. But you only really find that in Monaco, Imola, Canada, pretty much those three. After that, there's not really much to be said for that sort of thing. Maybe Vegas as well to some extent. So I think the Red Bull will come better at such a track, obviously, and then we got the technical directive to talk to as well. So let's bring that up on the screen now and take a look at the technical directive together. And then I'm going to show you around the track. I'm going to show you everything that needs to be done to be quick around Spain. So this is the technical directive. So a little bit of context before we crack on. The front wing, like aerodynamicists for the longest time, they've been trying to make the front wing and rear wing to some extent flex down the straight. The reason being you want it to be like give you the most load and present this angle to the racetrack during the corners, but you don't want to carry that drag with you down the straight. So it would be great if you had this angle of attack in the corners and on the straights, it just backed off and did one of these so that you can just move through the air nice and quick. The rear wings just fold back. The front wings just fold back on themselves beautifully, and then the car can go through the air. Now, the FIA, you know, they've spotted this. The teams have been measuring this. They're looking at each other. There is an art and a science to creating a front wing or rear wing that can flex under load. And I think in the interests of trying to keep the sport closer, that is not have a McLaren whitewash and run away, I think the FIA got their scopes on McLaren. They're looking at them saying, How can we just bring them back a little bit and level the playing field? I think that's the context and reason for such a change. So what they're trying to do is limit how much that can flex down the straight so that you don't get that straight line speed. I'll read it out to you. The new tests relate to how the F1 technical regulations police the front wing bodywork flexibility. When testing for excessive flexing, a load up to 1,000 newtons is applied in a downward direction at 2 points along the front wing. Now, until the Spanish Grand Prix, that is everything up to this point, deflection up to 15 millimeters was permitted when the load is applied symmetrically to both sides of the car, and 20 millimeters when applied to only one side. So you're looking at 15 for both load applied symmetrically, and then if it was applied to one, you're looking at 20. Now the changes as at Wednesday, the 28th of May, 2025, taking 5 millimeters off each. So the vertical deflection must be no more than 10 millimeters when the load is applied symmetrically to both sides of the car, and no more than 15 when the load is applied to one side. There is a further test that takes place on the front wing flap until Spain. The rules were that any part of the trailing edge of the front wing flap may deflect no more than 5 mil when measured along the loading axis with the 60 Newton point load applied. This is also reduced to 3 from Wednesday, the 28th of May. So what does that mean? Let me translate all that for you. Essentially, they were allowed to flex this much. Now they're allowed to flex this much. They were allowed to flex 15 mil. Now they're allowed to flex 10 mil. So the key point is they're still allowed to flex. So still controlling that flex is very important. Not the extent, because that 10 millimeter is capped, but at which speeds the front wing begins to fold, how quickly it begins to fold. These are things that are not policed, right? It's just from start to finish, it can only be between 0 and 10 millimeters. But if the McLaren folds in such a beautiful way that, you know, the front wing is folding only at the right time and at the right amounts and so on, then it becomes technical. Like it's still, that's the first call out. The second call out is, what was I going to say? I'm just reading the comments. Ignacio, hello. You cost me my train of thought here, mate. So the first call out is there is a how it folds, not just a how much it folds. Oh yeah, the second call out is that it's gone from 15 to 10. So we've reduced it by what? A third, sorry. We've reduced it by 33%. So there's still the 66%. Like it can still happen. So how much is this going to impact McLaren is the big question you guys want me to answer for. Potentially a little bit, but it suggests that McLaren front wing is flexing more than any other front wing, like total deflection is more. This, I'm not sure if this is true, if the total deflection of the McLaren rear front wing is more than others. For example, the McLaren, let's say it's flexing 50 mil and the Ferrari is flexing 10 mil. Okay, then we've got a case. But I don't actually know to what extent it's flexing, and then only those guys will know, and then how much therefore is it being tightened up. That's the first thing I'm not sure. The second thing is the McLaren have been holding a lot of cards all year, not just the aero efficiency card, but the traction card and the front grip card and the tire life card as well. So we keep trying to take away some of these cards off them, but they're looking at their hand going, well, you want to take away that one, we'll just play this one. So I can't help but feel McLaren will still have an advantage. The best outcome that we can hope for is that it brings the grid closer together. I hope that makes sense, guys. If you have questions, save them to the end of the live stream. I'll do my best to answer. I'm not an aerodynamicist. I'm not a vehicle dynamicist. This is my best understanding of what's going on. Okay, I'm going to take a quick drink and then I'm going to talk you guys through the chat. Maybe I'll take one question. Yuri, Spain is my favorite track on the calendar, especially with this layout. Although I did love the older layout too. It's just beautiful to watch any car drive around. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Cool. That's good. It's nice to have your favorite track. We had mine already. The Imola and Monaco were two of my favorites. But Spain, I totally get it. It's nice to watch the cars fly through here. And we're going to bring up the whiteboard now. I'm going to show you guys a few tips and a few tricks around this track. So let's crack on with that now. Now stay put for this section. This is going to be the most insightful driver coaching parts of this video. All right, whiteboard time. I'll just bring your question down. Yuri, actually, have I missed any super chats? Quickly browse. I don't want to miss the super chat, guys. Nah, it looks all good. All right, sweet. Here we go. Okay. So here we go. The Spanish track looks like this. And I've just written, as I always do, guys, the 7 technical corners down the bottom for you. So these are the 7 technical corners. They're here. 1, chicanes. 2, S's. 3, hairpins. And 4, double apex corners. Now, we haven't got any of these with us at this track. There's no chicanes. This is not Imola. This is not Canada. There's no S's. This is not Suzuka. This is not Silverstone. And this is not Austin. There's no hairpins. This is not China. This is not Austin. There's no double apex corners. Again, this is not Suzuka spoon curve, for example. And there are no decreasing radius corners either. This is not Bahrain or Miami, for example, with decreasing radius corners. So it leaves you with these 2, constant radius long corners and increasing radius long corners. So you're going to need front grip and you're going to need traction. Now, if you're not familiar with the most important things, like the 7 technical corners and what they demand from the driver and the car, head over to lowerlaptime.com, get yourself a course for $100, and it will tell you everything you need to know about the 7 technical corners, how to set the car up, how to drive them, and what the most important feature is for these types of corners. Now, we don't have all of the 7 technical corners here. We've only got the constant and the increasing. I'm going to call them out to you as we go. This one is a constant, and I've color coded it in red, so that's constant. And this one's another constant radius. These 2. So you need some good front grip in those corners. I'm going to spend a bit of time on this corner, guys. It's very important. It's very long, and drivers aren't taking it very well. I'm going to share with you guys a few onboards and show you, and we'll go in, we'll go around the track. I'll teach you. And then we've got increasing radius. Traction is your friend. Another one here. Increasing radius here. Traction is your friend as well. So you've got to set the car up for traction here and here, and you've got to get front grip through here and here. Front grip's also important through that long turn 3 as well. It's a full throttle corner. So the McLaren's going to be strong when we're talking about front grip, but like I say, it's also got good traction. The Mercedes has got good traction as well. So I'll just remove all that so you guys know where we are. And those are, does that make sense? Jasmine, what are you saying? Martin talking about the corners, got a phobia with corners on track. What does that mean? I don't understand that. Sorry, Jazz. Isn't turn 3 decreasing? It's full throttle, mate. Turn 3 is full throttle, flat out, 215 kilometers. So there's not much going on. In a way, it's just a bend in the straight. It's the same as these, right? These are going to be full throttle come Q3 as well. So decreasing radius is like Bahrain's 9 and 10. Do, 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 do. And then it tightens up like that. So that's decreasing. It would be like if you came in if you were driving the track this way, do, 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 and then that's decreasing. But because we're going this way, it's increasing. So no, it's a full throttle right-hander. Okay, so I'm going to talk you guys through the track now. I'm going to explain to you some of the opportunities. Here's your first opportunity down at turn 1, the entry curb. A lot of drivers don't use this, but I feel like if you can get half your car onto the entry curb here, it gives you a little bit more room from which to turn into turn 1. Can you guys see that? I'm just going to zoom in a touch on the screen. I'll bring your question down. So I feel like if you can get your car halfway across this entry curb under braking, at least the left front, that half of the car, it gives you a little bit more room from which to sweep in and carry speed into turn 1. It's not a corner you want to drive a tight line in. It's all about sweeping in, carrying apex speed, and getting as close to the right as possible here for a nice entry into 2 and therefore a nice entry into 3. So I think it all starts here, guys. Now, I don't see too many drivers doing that. I'll bring up a picture now, but most of them do this. This was Lando Norris from turn 1 in 2024. It looks like this. So I don't know, guys. I feel like if Lando is another half a car width to the left, with the left front on this curb, maybe this red is very slippery. But if you practice this and over the weekend, you clean it up and get familiar with it and eventually lay a bit of rubber down, actually you can see there's a bit of rubber or some sort of grip being laid down here. I feel like there's an opportunity here at turn 1 to open the track, open the corner entry, and carry a little bit more speed down into the apex. That's the first thing. So I'm keeping an eye out for that as number one. Okay, so turn two, it's just the issue with turn two is that you're building traction and you've got the steering direction change. So it's tricky. You do need to put the throttle down nice and progressively between 1 and 2. But again, if you can carry more speed on the way in, that's helpful. More speed and downforce makes your life easier through turn 2. So again, I think the secret to 1, 2, and 3 is the turn 1 entry curb. So I'll be watching out for that during the weekend. Now you're going to hear guys like Peter talking a lot about the entry into turn 3. I'm going to try to explain to you what he says when he talks about this. Personally, I don't think there's a million miles a lap time here or a big difference, but nevertheless, I want you guys to know when he says what he says. So he's going to be talking about short corners, and it's not short corners. It's just taking a tighter entry into the corner. So he's going to be talking about just those who just dive in to turn 3. I'm going to zoom in again just so you guys can see what we're talking about. He'll be talking about those who just exit turn 2 and immediately dive into turn 3. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that because what it does, it puts excessive load on the front left tire. You're steering a little bit more and you're tight. So I think it just can become a little bit hard later in the corner. When the load comes across, your car's not at a nice enough angle. I prefer that you come out slightly and, well, I drew that bad, but I prefer that you come out slightly and miss an kind of apex over here. Whereas if you dive in too early into the corner, to feel like, again, like similar to the Charles thing at Monaco, you're stuck. You can't use the steering wheel anymore. So the load comes across and there's potential for you to get washed out. So look, yeah, just keep, when Peter talks about that, it's not a big story. The bigger story, I'll show you where the biggest story is. The bigger story is going to be here. Turn 12. That's where there's going to be a big story about tight lines and short corners. So when I get around to that part of the track, that's where, mate, that's where you're going to be paid. There's not really much of a story over here. In fact, if we bring up the telemetry, if I have it handy, I'll bring it up. There's no story here. It's just, there's no lap time to be found. So if I go 2025, I'll bring up the telemetry for you guys. Okay, 2025 Spain quali. 24, sorry. We haven't done 25. Click to select fastest laps. So it's this one here. And like if you look at the delta, it's barely kind of not much going on here. Yes, there is change, but there's also change down like the pitch straight, for example, as well. So like as Max tears down the pitch straight, he's finding time. And so it depends on where the guys use their battery as well and how the team set up their deployment. But it's full throttle through here. So what are we looking at? Like I don't see a big story here. Actually, where I see the biggest story is where the delta drops off here towards the end of the lap. That's what I'm saying. The long corner of constant radius at the back end of the track. I'm going to talk you guys through that. And that's over here. So where I click on the map, that's where the white line appears. That's where the delta comes down from like 1/10 down to like just over half a tenth. That's where I think there's a big story. I don't think there's a big story at turn 3. So I wanted to give you guys a bit of context there and a bit of information down at turn 3. Okay, so then we reach the first increasing radius corner where traction is very important. Again, guys, I think there is an opportunity for the entry curb because once again, it's going to help you if you can get half your car across this curb. And keep an eye out for Kimi Antonelli here, guys. He'll be the one that'll be trying this. Andrea Kimi Antonelli. He will be the one, like if you guys remember Bahrain, he'll be the one that uses putting the left front all across the curb and trying to maximize the entry. The entry curb across here, if you can get your car half a car width across it, it does help you carry more speed and downforce into turn 4. That's one step. And then when you go for the throttle, because you've got more speed, it's helpful as well because you can just put your foot down a little bit harder and earlier when you go for the throttle. So the entry curb here, I'm going to be keeping an eye out. And it's the exact same technique as what we said back here at turn 1. carrying more speed into turn 1, going for the throttle between 1 and 2 as well. So those are the two opportunities to leverage entry curbs. I'll try to bring up a picture so you guys can see it as well. Bear with me for a sec. Oh, by the way, yeah, here's the picture. This one. Yeah, so this is max. There's some beautiful grip available to the left. You don't need to be so tight. The wider you are, you can carry more speed into turn 4. Again, keep an eye out for Kimi Antonelli. Just going back a few steps to turn 3, I did want to show you guys the difference in entries between the drivers. This is Lando 2024, Charles 22 pole, and Max 23. Yes, there are differences to be observed in their entry. You see Lando a lot closer to the apex earlier, turning in slightly less. Charles has left a little bit of room, turning in a little bit more. Max kind of between the two. Again, their foots are welded to the floor. So I don't see, they're all going to make it through here. And they're all going to make it through here in one way, shape or form. And I don't see a big story here. That's turn 3. That was back over here, guys. The entry into 3. You're going to hear a lot from Peter about that this weekend. So look, traction's the most important thing over here. Traction. So how do you get traction? Well, I'm going to list a few ways you can get it. Obviously, if you carry more speed and downforce, that's going to be helpful. It'll have to do with the diff. Now, remember, with the differential, you've got on-throttle differential, exit differential, high-speed differential. The teams are going to name this differently and they're going to configure it differently. But freeing up the diff on the way in so you get nice rotation, locking it on the way out so that you get good traction is going to be helpful. Obviously, the throttle, the way you put it down is very important. You want to put it down nicely and progressively. And the throttle shape as well is very important. So that's the translation between what you do with your foot versus how much power the engine gets. You want to have a throttle shape that gives you a little bit of time and keeps the car a little bit more stable. So you've got the diff, the throttle shape, your speed and downforce that you carry. And then, of course, you've got your shifting. You can do some short shifting on the way out and just dull the revs a little bit. That can be helpful as well. So these are the sort of tools that you can use to get a little bit more traction on the exit of turn 4. Nearly spilled my coffee. Okay, so I'm going to clean this up. Does that make sense, guys? Let me know if, yeah, the diff. Does that make sense, guys? Let me know in the comments. So we're talking about exit of 4 traction. Now we've got the long corner of constant radius, the first one. It's kind of borderline hairpin. Hairpin for me would look something like this. It'd be like, you know, get the car down to second gear and be that sort of thing. Long corner constant radius, there's not a big story to be told here either. As long as you're clean and you go in deep enough to, again, use the front tires, I think you'd be good into there. So I don't see a big story there. Likewise into 7, I don't see a big story here. You just want to use the engine braking here on the way down, engine braking, EB, because you're turning and braking and the speed's not super high. Like, for example, when you're braking into here or into here, you can hammer the brake pedal because you've got the speed and downforce to go with it. Whereas having just accelerated out of turn 5, you're kind of building speed and it's not the time to be smashing the brake pedal. Plus you're turning, braking, downshifting at the same time. So the corner does get slightly tighter as you come through it. Engine braking. So smash the gears a lot, keeps the car nice and stable on the way in. And then make sure you open the wheel on the way out is very important because the track falls away in terms of its undulation. So if you're over here looking at the track, what you will see is the track kind of fall and come back like that as you head up the uphill over here. But it does have a bit of a dip across here as well. So that's across here. So that's where you just need to keep the steering wheel straight, short shift and get out of here. I think on the entry into 9, it will be flat come qualifying. I don't see a big story there. Otherwise, it's going to be just a lift, just a downshift. Let the aerodynamics and or the downshift take care of things on the way into turn 9. And now we're getting towards the interesting part of the lap for me. These are the two money corners, I reckon. It's these two. These are the two most important corners on the racetrack. They are a long corner of increasing radius, turn 10, and then a long corner of constant radius, turn 12. With turn 10, the problem is you're accelerating from low speed when downforce is not very significant, and it's dramas. Because you can see this 110 here. It's very different putting your foot down from 110 kilometers per hour than putting your foot down from 160 or from 150 or from 150 here or from 155. This is by far the lowest on the track other than this one, but the steering wheel's straight there, so that's all good. The problem with this one is you're turning and on throttle at the same time, and that's the issue with the increasing radius corners. That means that you're going to have traction issues on the way out, and getting out of turn 10, like it's so much helpful if you can just bury your foot and put your foot down and get out of turn 10. You'll find like if you could do that and have heaps of rear grip, you find like 0.2 of a second easily there. So this is where the low-hanging fruit, this is where the easy lap time to be found is paying attention to this part of the track, turns 10, 11, and 12. So turn 10, traction, all the things we spoke about. So your diff, your short shifting, your throttle input and shape as well. These are the things that are going to help you get out of turn 10. Setting up your car as well. Now, look, I wouldn't be going on and loading rear wing because firstly, you're accelerating from 110 kilometers per hour. The rear wing is not going to save you and do the world for you through there. Potentially through something like that corner, or if you've got oversteer through 9, yes, I would say the rear wing is going to help you here and here. But if you're trying to resolve for traction issues over here, the rear wing's not your friend because the speed I don't think is good enough. And then the problem is you're going to pay for that all the way down. You're going to pay for that all the way down here. You're paying a penalty all the way down there trying to fix turn 10. So if you go after rear wing there, it wouldn't be very smart. I wouldn't do that. I'd be looking at more mechanical components such as diff, such as roll bar, such as my throttle shape, my throttle input, my gears, my short shifting, springs, roll bars, dampers, stiffeners, all that. The vehicle dynamics guys can help sort that out for you. Try not to go after rear wing here. So now there's a really important part of the track because there's a direction change to be made. You go over a little crest into 11 and then you go into a little dip into turn 12. Generally, the problem with 12, because it's a long corner of constant radius, the biggest problem is understeer. It's totally different to turn 10, where the biggest problem is traction over here because you're on throttle. The biggest problem is understeer. You've got to get the nose into 12 nicely. And if it can pull you around here, then that's how you're going to be quick. The more front grip you need to have, the more front grip you can have, the better. You got to dial in front grip. Again, I don't think front wing is going to be your best friend into here. It can be, not to say that it can't be, but you got to understand that if you do whack on some front wing, you're going to pay for that down these parts of the racetrack, are you not? That's quite a costly exercise to clean up turn 12. So that's why I always say try to resolve it ideally with mechanical means, all of the issues that you're having. It'd be tricky to add on some front wing. Yeah, it might work like beautiful through turn 12, but then what? You're going to pay for it down the straight? Maybe you want to find a more elegant solution. So we're going to talk a little bit about turn 12 now. Here's the really important part. I'm going to draw a dotted line between 11 and 12. When you cross over this part of the racetrack, you got to make a direction change and a switch with your hands. And that's where you'll see the difference between the smooth, subtle drivers who get the nose in early into turn 12. That's the tight line. I've drawn it in green. You dive in early, tight line, dive in early, take the apex, stay close to the apex, and worry about the exit later. You will be fastest up to this point, but the question is whether or not you take advantage on throttle. Now the short corner, if I draw it in orange, it's more of a wet V style. It's like you come in out wide and you do something like that. And what you can see with the short corner is small rotation point, extends the straight on the way in, extends the straight on the way out, V's off the corner, gets on the throttle earlier. And the whole idea is that you're going to blast out of that corner and send the car down the pitch straight nicely. Whereas the tight line says, I just want to get into the corner early. I'll stay where the grip is. I'll stay closer to the inside and I'll just wait for the car to turn. Again, it depends on, there's no right or wrong here. Sometimes I just encourage my drivers, curiosity, mate. Try them both. If you haven't seen my video, How to Drive Like a Machine, I think it's in the description of this one. I recommend that you just try them both. Like do 5 laps on the tight line, 5 laps on the short corner. Eventually you're going to be like, I'm pretty sure you're going to work out the short corner doesn't work. And then you're going to be like, okay, this is the tight line. And you can start refining it. You can start chipping away at the tight line and starting to play with the intricacies of the turn-in a little bit more. Max, I just saw your question. Do you need to save your tires in sector 1 for sector 2 to be fast around here? Look, we've got the 3 hardest compounds here. So the short answer will be probably not. Whereas in Monaco and Imola, we had the 3 softest compounds. So then there was an argument to say, yeah, take it easy and you need the tires for the rest of the lap. We're bringing, what are we bringing? The C1, the C2, the C3? Hopefully they should hang on for the whole lap. I don't think you need to. But good question. So the short corner versus tight line. All right, cool. Now let me show you on the video what we're talking about here. T12. So I'm going to show you Lando, the way he what I'm looking for here is the transition. There's a point where, I'll go back to the whiteboard so we're super clear on this. There's a point where you're turning left and then that switches and then you're turning right. And that transition, how you make that switch with your hands is very important. The drivers that go from left to right very quickly haven't given the car enough time to enough settle. It is not going to be compliant on the right-hand turn-in. The guys that make that transition very smoothly into turn 12, the car will go into 12 nicer. So that's what I wanted to teach you guys and show you guys. Now we're going to bring up some videos now. I'm going to share with you how the drivers are taking this corner in the past. So you've got Lando in 24, Max in 23, Charles in 22, and Lewis Hamilton in 21. A bunch of different pole positions over the years here. So let's have a look at that now. All right, so you can see it on the screen. So the first thing I want you to call out, this is coming through turn 10. I'll just go back to the whiteboard. We're here. Down here. Turning left. So the first thing I want to call out is just watch Lando's wheel and the traction issue he has. There you go. You just see those little shakes as he tries to put his foot down. So he's already probably a little bit wide, getting a little bit of rubbish on the right front here. And this is why the lap times here, I'd probably encourage Lando to be a little bit left. But anyway, a few traction issues on the way out. And this direction change is very important for the car's compliance. I like the way Lando did this. Have a look at the slow-mo. Watch the steering wheel. The way Lando just gently and progressively turns the car into the corner and then adds the steering lock later in the corner, doing a bit of a late apex. I'm generally happy with that. So I think that's the way to go. Let's have a look at Max now. Now Max is a little bit different. Max throws the car at the corner with a big, strong initial input. There, even in the slow-mo, do you see how quickly Max makes the transition from left to right? Now Max is hacking away at the wheel here, by the way. He's turned into this corner about 6 times and oversteer on the exit for good measure. I'm going to show it to you again. Watch how smoothly Lando turns in the slow-mo. So smooth to the right and he waits. And then he adds a bit more and he adds a bit more. He does pick up a bit of understeer in the middle, but this corner's so long that that's what happens. Gets on the throttle and goes out. Everything looks pretty good. Max, on the other hand, quick hands, changes very quickly. He turns into the corner so many times and so it's quite ugly. But he was quicker than Lando in 2024 through this corner. And I'm going to show you guys why he was. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm not a big fan of this technique from Max. Now Max, just a bit of context, guys, before we look at Charles. Max has struggled in long corners of constant radius throughout his career. You remember Hungary? I'm -5 brake bias and the thing still doesn't turn. Why? Because Hungary's stacked with long corners of constant radius. Turn 2, turn 6, and the last two corners, turn 12 and turn 13, if I've got my numbers correct, are all long corners of constant radius. That's not Max's favorite type of corner, guys. So if there is a weakness in Max's driving, it might be in long corners of constant radius. I generally see Max struggle through those. And I think it's got to do with the tight line versus short corner thing. He wants to be the corner off, but eventually the car just doesn't want to go in. He doesn't have the front grip to be able to do that. So what you should notice is, again, the quick hands, right? The quick direction change. Here left, bang to the right. Even in the slow-mo, this is at 40% of normal speed. It's still a quick aggressive change. Going to show you guys Leclerc now. And let me know what you think about Leclerc. For me, it's similar to Lando. He switches very progressively and waits, hold. And then he adds a bit more slowly. And he picks up a bit of understeer and tries to turn a bit more. The car doesn't want to do it, but that's a symptom of the cars. Again, Leclerc and Lando having similar issues. Have a look at Lewis here in 21. I know different cars, different eras, but his hands also switch very quickly. And the result is similar to Max. Picks up a lot of understeer in the middle, has traction issues on the exit. It goes from left to right very quickly. So the left front, you load it up. Look, it doesn't want to turn at all into that corner. And there's the oversteer on the exit. So that's very similar to what we saw with Max. Do you remember Max had that oversteer on the exit as well? There it is. So both of them snapped in exactly the same spot. And both of them changed their hands very quickly. And both of them missed the apex. I'm talking about Max and Lewis here. So there's your oversteer moment for Max on the exit. And for Lewis in 21, there it is there. You see, he just had to open the steering wheel for a fraction. I'm looking at the wheel now, guys. There you go. He had to open the steering wheel for a fraction of a second there. Very similar points in the corner. And I think the best example here was Lando's. If I can show you the slow-mo of Lando's. Just the way the weight comes across from that right-hand side to the left-hand side with gentle progressive steering into a long corner of constant radius. This is the tight line. Trying to get the nose into the corner early, leaving a little bit of space, but absorbing that towards the end, taking a later apex. I think that's the best way through here. This is where I think the lap is going to be won and lost, guys. The way you get out of 10 with the increasing radius traction and the way you get into turn 12, get the nose into turn 12, the front grip, is going to be, I think, the story of qualifying. So keep an eye out for that, guys. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? So just as we go back to the track map, once you're done and you bury the throttle on the way out, the rest is, should be flat come Q3. Bang, over the line. Okay. I'm just reading the chat, see if all this makes sense. Stephen, question. Hey, Martin, slightly off topic, but what do you think about the drivers routinely driving into hard braking zones at an angle as opposed to the apex? I think I know what you're talking about here. Yeah, I know what you're talking about here. Give me a sec. I'll bring up the track map and we'll talk about it. Because it's actually worth calling out and it's a good spot, mate. You've got a good eye to see that. Okay, so you guys can see the track map. So Stephen, what Stephen's talking about is generally the drivers will exit here on the exit, stay down here, and then come a little bit mid-track, and then brake like away, like you're talking about this, the way they brake in that angle away from the apex. Stephen, can you jump in the chat and tell me if this is what you're talking about? I'm pretty sure it is. Whereas what I think you're saying is, why don't the drivers brake into the corner like that? That's what you're saying, right? And a good example is the turn 1 shot that I had of Lando. this picture here. If you go back a few meters, yeah, Steven says, yeah. So if you go back another 100 meters, what you'll find is Lando's pointing away from the apex as opposed to pointing towards it. So the reason I think, Stephen, and it's a good question, is because it gives the rear a little bit more stability on the entry. That's all. So if you've got the car already facing the corner and you turn in, there's the potential for over rotation. Whereas if you've got the car slightly pointing away from the corner, then there's the potential, like it's harder to lose the rear on the entry. So you can attack the corner a little bit more. It's a great question, mate, and I picked it up. Can you just bear with me for a second? Because I'll show you the best example that I have of this, and it's in Melbourne. Bear with me. Yeah, it's a good question, so I'll respect the question and give it a little bit of time. Can you bear with me 2 minutes? I'll bring up the Melbourne shot. And I'll show you, Melbourne, it's most pronounced. Oops. Bear with me, I'll bring it up. And bring up a screenshot. So here's one screenshot. I'll take that. Take that. I'll grab one more screenshot for you. There's another one. Okay. All right. It's a good question, Stephen, mate, so I want to give it a bit of time. All right, whiteboard. So this is in Melbourne. I'll bring the question up again. It's something else I see Peter being somewhat annoyed, especially Checo, even though drivers perhaps loading the outside tire. Yeah, just before turn in using. Yeah, I know. That's a different argument. He's talking about opening up the corner entry like we spoke about in turn one. I'll come back to that as well. You've got a good eye, good questions. All right, let me just address this part first, and I'll bring your question down. So what you're talking about, Stephen, is why do the drivers come down the mid-track and then have the car pointing away from the apex of turn one, like you see the Mercedes doing over here, like you see the leader, Vettel, doing over here. And again, I think it's rear entry stability, because it's a lot harder to lose the car when you're going to go and turn into turn one like that. Whereas if you were to turn in, like if you were to tear down the pit straight down the side and then just turn in, there's the potential for the rear to go on the grass, firstly, the left rear, and then you get over rotation into turn one. That's my answer. But I mean, that's a high level question. That's a professional level question. It's very dusty down here on the right, very dirty, so you don't want to go there. But I get it. You're prioritizing rear grip on entry as opposed to optimizing for front grip on entry. And this is Melbourne turn one is not a long corner where you're going to need heaps of front grip. So it works. So that's the best I can give you, best answer I can give you, but it's a really good question. Now that you're talking about opening up the entries, that's different. What Peter talks about, that's more the whole tight line thing. So let me explain that to you. Delete that. So whiteboard. Okay. So what you're talking about is, and what Peter hates, and I understand it, I get it, is that there's let's say an entry curb over here, and you'll see Kimi Antonelli with half his car across it, opening up the entry to carry more speed. Yes and no. There are times when you want to do this, and there are times when you don't want to do this. I've called out times when you want to do this already on this live stream. Turn one, you want to be doing this. Bahrain track, you want to be doing this as well. Turn four, I called out as well. The entry curb is your friend that's going to allow you to carry speed on the way into turn four, keep the downforce active, and be able to nail the throttle on the exit. So there are times when you do want to do it, and times when you don't want to do it. When you don't want to do it, that's when I would say it's the tight line. So we come over here. And so what I don't want drivers to do is come like, let's say there was an entry curb across here, for example. There's no point coming across there and only to go in like that, you're doing extra work. I'd rather you just dive into the corner, if that makes sense. So they're great questions, mate. So yeah, keep an eye out for Antonelli milking the track as we go around this weekend on the entries, because he likes to do that. Okay, thank you for that. Good questions. Let's move on very quickly because we've been going for an hour now. I'm going to talk about just very briefly about the tires and strategy that we have this weekend. And like I mentioned before, we've got the C1, C2, C3. Not only is the track challenging for the cars, it also places high demands on the tires. After 2 consecutive rounds featuring the softest, we're now back to the hardest, namely the C1, the C2, and the C3. And again, it's because of the load on these high-speed right-handers. They mentioned that the forces exerted on the tires are medium to high because of the many fast corners, such as turn 3 and the final 2, both of them right-handers. That's why they're bringing the hard compounds this weekend. What does that mean for strategy? Let's have a look. I think we'll be looking at a 1-stop again, but last year I think they 2-stopped. So if I can just jump across to the next shot. These were the pit stops last year, and they 2-stopped most of them. So Max started on a used set of softs, ran the medium for the mid part of the race, and went on the softs again. It may be the case. It's going to come down to the overtaking delta. If you guys aren't familiar with the overtaking delta, it's how much quicker do you need to be than the car in front in order to overtake them. If that's 0.7 of a second that you need to be quicker than the car in front in order to overtake them, forget it. In Monaco, you're looking at 10-second overtaking delta. In Imola, you were looking at a maybe 3 or 4/10 overtaking delta, so it was possible to pass. So that's very important. And if it is possible or feasible to pass, I'd go to a 2-stop. Now, you're going to get that information very early on in the race. There might be an overtake between George Russell and Lando Norris, as there was in Imola, which was pretty straightforward, which means the overtaking delta is low, which means, George struggled to get past Lando, which means the overtaking delta was high, which means 1-stop. So you're going to get that information in the first stint as you see cars attack each other. That should really inform your strategy, I reckon, because overtaking is very important. It's more important than tire wear because even if you're on dead tires, you'll still be able to keep the car behind. That's when Max won his first race, 2016. That was the way to go. Going to talk quickly about turn 1, lap 1 and starts. There is the potential to attack around the outside into turn 1. There is the potential to make up places on the inside into turn 1 as well. What are we looking for? As always, guys, we're looking for the defensive posture. Let me bring up the whiteboard again. The whiteboard's going to be getting a good workout today. So if this is the starting grid down here, you've got pole position on the left-hand side. I'll clean this up, guys. I'll zoom out, make it proper. All right, let's clean all this up so we're clear. All right, so you got pole position here, and you got P2 here, P3 here, P4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're pole, the same story applies, right? You've got to pull to the inside, shoot across, and defend Mr. P2 trying to make his way up the inside. Force him around the outside, and then as a pole sitter on the inside now, you want to squeeze him to the right, brake nice and deep, and so on. But that can leave you open to P3. That's the problem, because P3, now that everyone's all tight on the inside, like George Russell, can get a good slipstream and sweep in across the outside. So that's what happened last year, guys. I'll bring it up on the screen for you now. Give me a sec. It'll be open with that one. There you go. This is what happened. The problem was Lando, this is garbage defense. Lando should be angling his car across to cut Max off. By the time Lando gets across to the inside, mate, it's too late. What are you doing? So then Lando starts moving across, but Max has already got his front wing there. Lando can't keep coming across. Max has got the place. But while all that shenanigans is happening, like I say, you've got P3 George Russell here stealing a slipstream off Max, stealing it off Lando now, tucking in. He's going to pull out, take the grip, take the racing line and wrap both of them up actually quite comfortably as well. So keep an eye out for that. It's always an amazing start in Spain. Those are the things that you're looking out for off the line. Yes, shoot to the inside and preset your car in the box and defend and fight and compete for turn one. That will never let you down. But you need to brake deep enough and get a good enough launch so that P3 doesn't start to come at you, and that's when it's going to be a challenge to defend from both. When it comes to restarts, I'll go back to the whiteboard. If you do get a safety car restart and you're in the lead, I would recommend the moment you get out of turn 12, bang, you go for it and send it out of turn 12. The reason being, you're going to be the first one with the steering wheel straight. It's going to allow you to be on throttle from about here, and you're going to send it down the pitch straight and run the full length. Like I say, you're going to be the first one on a safety car restart to get to see the end of this corner. That's going to give you an edge. If you were to just walk through here and bring the field around and then just go, well, now you're in trouble, because the second car can also just go, and they'll see you go and they'll react to you going, and you'll be maybe in trouble down the pitch straight. I think you need to find a place where you can go and only you can go. And that's where I think the restart, if you are the leader, you want to send it out of turn 12. That's your restart point. Okay, quick predictions. Look, front grip is going to be important. Traction is going to be important because you've got a lot of increasing radius corners. We've got the new technical directive as well. It's going to be a combination. It's going to be, I think it's going to be closer than previous. And I think max for pole. And, you know, what more can I say? I'm putting my reputation on the line here. I think max for pole and McLaren attacking him maybe during the race. I don't know, guys. Like, it'd be between Max and McLaren. You know, you'd have to go that way, wouldn't you? I think you wouldn't want to bet against Max Verstappen as at the 29th of May 2025 with the technical regulation in a high-speed track that Max likes, by the way. All right, let me take your questions maybe for 3 to 5 minutes. If you had a burning one, whack it in the chat for me. I'll answer it for you now. All right. May Q, welcome. Braking on elevation is also important. Yes, it is very important. I would refer you back to the Monaco live stream that we did last week. We spoke about braking downhill. We spoke about braking uphill as well. If I still have some of the images, I will share them with you now. Bear with me for a second. Yes, I do. Here they are. And there's no rules, right? You've got to be open-minded and curious. This is an example of braking downhill where the rear stability is a problem. This is an example of braking downhill where the front is locked and the rotation is a problem. And they're both downhill because one goes downhill progressively and one goes downhill off like a crest. So they're very different. And look, I'd refer you back to that live stream and you'll get the full explanation there. But essentially, there's more to it than just the elevation. I think the nature of the corner is more than that. I don't change too much braking uphill versus downhill. It's more for the corner type for me. So I hope that helps. Go back to the Monaco live stream and have a look at that. Nudger, didn't the new TD come in prior to the season? So how would the FIA have known who they needed to peg back a bit? McLaren have been doing this for a while. Yeah, this is not news. McLaren have been flexing rear wings, mini DRS. Remember mini DRS in Baku? They've been doing this for a while. So it's not like it was something this year. This year, the McLaren front grip is huge due to the whole anti-dive system. That's the new information. Just anti-dive means they can run the car a bit lower, knowing that it won't dive and scrape the bottom under braking because of the anti-dive. So when you run the car lower, you get more downforce. It supercharges the front wing. That's my understanding anyway. So it's not new. Would the flexi wing changes affect tire wear? No. The whole point of the flexi wing is to get more straight line speed down the straights. So in the corners, you want it to spring back up. You want it to pop back up and do its job, take you through turn one, for example. So that'll be fine. It's more like, do you get the drag reduction? It's almost like a DRS. It's now we're not getting the drag reduction down the straights. So the straights obviously not contributing to factors to tire wear. So I would say no. Sammy, would the tire management be critical during the race? So McLaren should in theory be in mix for the race. Yes, as it always is. Like, you should always consider tire wear with your lines and your technique. It's just that how easy is it going to be to overtake? How easy is it going to be to follow through these final two corners here and not get front washed, like aero washed, and be able to overtake? If you can't overtake, it's kind of like, well, what are we doing? Like it's going to be hard to pass. And then what's the point of looking after the tires? I don't know. So I hope that we can see tire wear being a thing. It's going to be important nevertheless. Gunny, what if the flex of the wing has increased more than the limit during the race? What will happen? As I understand, if it passes the test, it passes the test. So you can't test during the race, right? Am I right or wrong there? Like they're going to test it statically. I guess they maybe got some measuring or monitoring devices on the car, maybe, but it's actually hard to measure properly. As I understand, it's going to be the static test is going to be cleaned up. Maybe I'm wrong here. I don't know. And therefore, it can do what it wants down the pit straight. I don't know. I think it's a static test, but I'm not sure. Another question. We'll go for another few questions. Barbara. Obviously, you remember, denoted with the little helmet next to your name. If it's 30 degrees, will the drivers use the new cooling system t-shirt? Do you think it can affect driving? Not really. No, I don't think so. It's not that bad. Like, this should be fun. This one will be tough with the neck. Obviously, like when Pirelli come out and say high load on the tires due to fast right-handers, the same happens for the neck. But I don't think it's going to be like an overheating thing like Singapore or Qatar, for example, where maybe these things can make a difference. Again, the physical space is not my realm, and I think it's massively over exaggerated. All the drivers during the off season putting in the work, physically preparing. What about technical? What about tactical? What about mental? These are the ones that are going to pay you ultimately at the end of the day. So I'm very like, the physical can take a backseat. It's not, wouldn't be my priority as a driver. One more question and then we'll wrap up. Alpha, your one's at the bottom. Which driver on the grid, in your opinion, has changed his style technique in the last approximately 10 years? Well, Fernando pops to mind because, we're going back to 2005, 2006, but, he had very aggressive initial input for steering, which we spoke about in turn 12 will not help you. Actually, that shifts all the weight all at once across to the outside front tire and then makes it slide and gives you understeer. You don't want that. So Fernando's cleaned that up. He learned that lesson in 2007, and he's, I guess, as a result of 05, 06, 07, he's now considered very adaptable. Probably Carlos has done a good job in moving teams so much. He's driven for McLaren, he's driven for Ferrari, he's driven for Renault, he's driven now for Williams. I think I'm missing a team in there somewhere besides Alonso. Yeah, maybe Carlos, because I just feel like he's been adapting the whole time, which is, I take my hat off to him for. That's not easy to do. So yeah, maybe Carlos, Fernando. Charles has been at the same team for so long and come in this generation. Lewis should adapt maybe more. I don't think he's the most adaptable. Max as well has changed very seamlessly from 2021 to 2022 and 2016. Max is great in that area. So I think those are the drivers that deserves a call out. So look, that's the end of this live stream, guys. I hope you learned something from it. On your way out, please leave me a comment on the video. It helps the channel massively in moving forward, and I give up my evenings to try to tell you all this info. The least I ask for you guys, just give me a comment, give the video a thumbs up. And if you're new here, welcome and subscribe to this channel. We do this every week, and I'll be putting out a video after each day during the race weekend as well. So once again, thanks for watching. Thank you for your questions. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. As always, I'll see you in the next one.